Hey everybody, Tommy here with a fantastic video because we are taking a detailed look at the new Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, a car which I think is very misunderstood. You see, when this vehicle launched, I looked at the specs, I looked at the design, and I thought, it seems all right, but it doesn't seem to be that groundbreaking. However, after spending some time with this car, I've learned that there's a lot of really great attributes which you don't see on the spec sheet, which you don't see on the design, which really make this car quite a pleasure to live with. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the pros and the cons of the EQS SUV. Now this is the 450 Plus, this is the entry-level SUV, and if you want to come over here, Ian, we'll talk a little bit about the look, because this is certainly one of the most polarizing aspects of this car. It's focused on aerodynamics, it's focused on efficiency, and in my opinion, it isn't the most attractive EV on the market. It's just a little bit too bulbous, a little bit too rounded, and a little bit too weird in a lot of attributes. But the more I look at it, the more I realize that, there are some pretty cool design elements when you start looking close. For example, they have simulated a grille in the front here, and they've added individual three-pointed stars across the entire front fascia. You got that long continuous LED light bar that starts at the left headlight, continues down the middle, finishes at the right. You've got the Mercedes emblem, which hides a lot of the ADAS functionality behind there. Looks pretty good. And then, of course, you've got a little bit of intake down low to keep the vehicle nice and cool. And then, when you come along to the side of this vehicle, some things worth noting. This particular EQS is equipped with a 21-inch wheel design, but it's got aero skirting. So you'll notice along the spokes here, not a lot of pass-through space. It's mostly covered to help with range, and the range on this vehicle is actually quite impressive. Along the side, we've got this silver finished running board with these black little traction bars. Of course, EQS cars are known for a couple of things. One of the things they're known for, let me go ahead and unlock the vehicle. Unlock the vehicle. Come on, there we go. One of the things that a lot of the EQS cars are known for now is the place to fill up the windshield washer fluid, because of course you can't open the hood as a user of this vehicle. You have to do it at the dealer, but you can still fill up your washer if you run low on fluid. This particular one doesn't have any roof bars here, so it's got a very sleek profile. The door handles, as I was just mentioning, they are very slick. They do hide away, but I do find myself fighting with them more than I end up enjoying their functionality. They are supposed to pop out automatically. They do most of the time, but sometimes you do have to reach for the key to unlock and pop them out. And then as we make our way to the rear of the vehicle here, Ian, once again, that long continuous width-adding light bar continues along back here. You got this red finish on the taillight. You got your small little reverse lights there. And then, of course, in the Star, you've got your backup camera, and then it also allows access to the large trunk. It's actually a really quick power liftgate, which is quite nice. View blocker folds back there, and of course power folding second row seats at the push of a button. They will fold down majestically, but a huge amount of space, as you'd expect in a large SUV. This competes with cars like the BMW iX and the Tesla Model X. You even have some additional storage space underneath the rear floor. So in terms of cargo capacity, this thing is ready to tackle just about any challenge you throw at it. But I still have to say, after living with it for a few days, the overall design, still not my favorite on the market. I think the iX, although it's a little weird, looks a little bit better with just being a little bit more kind of angular and aggressive. I think the Model X is probably the best looking in this class. But when you step on the inside, you really start to see where Mercedes put a lot of their attention. So let's check out the inside. Now, I do have the sticker on this EQS. So this is the 450 Plus. Rear-wheel drive in the spec. It starts at $104 as configured, $113,000, $113,600. And the range on this model, 305 miles, is really pretty impressive. For a large family hauling SUV, that's very good. And after driving it around, I do believe the range. I haven't had, unfortunately, time this week to do a full range test, but it really seems to be very efficient from the form factor side. Now let's look at the seats, because these seats look a little bit unconventional, but are super comfortable. A perforated leather finish here, mild bolstering, and then my favorite feature are the plush headrest, front and back. You place your head back there, they just squish beautifully, and they are so unbelievably comfortable. I just love them. They're really, really cool. I know some ultra premium German brands from, BMW, Mercedes have used these in back seats before, but having them in the front is really quite nice. And then when you look at the dashboard layout, this one, like EQS cars have the hyperscreen as an option. This car doesn't have the hyperscreen. Instead, you get this very nautical-like wood that cascades down the dashboard with these free-flowing vent designs and then this large central screen here. I actually prefer this over that hyperscreen that we see in some other Mercedes cars because I just find this to be a little bit more elegant and feels a little bit more premium. And then everywhere you touch, even in the non-touch points, you got beautiful stitch material up there on the dash. The headliner, kind of just your standard perforated, like a cloth material, not too fancy there, but like across the armrest here. Once again, that brown stitch really looks good, and the EQS team does a great job with the color combos, matching the brown on the white with the gray and the steering wheel. It's a really attractive design. But Ian, why don't you hop in? We'll show off some of the technology, and then we'll take this vehicle for a drive. So foot on the brake pedal. We're gonna click the start button. Screens are going to glide into life. Now, this is the latest and greatest of the Mercedes-Benz MBUX system, and it's fantastic. In my opinion, it works great. I know, like, my dad finds it to be a little bit fussy, but I find all the widgets super easy to access. It does have, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if you so desire, but I think that the Mercedes system is so good natively. There's not much that I'd really want to use Apple CarPlay for, including like the phone integration, super easy to use. You do have massaging seats, right? This is a very well-equipped car. Even with relatively few options, this being $114,000. But you got quick access to just about every functionality in this car. You got quick access to your climate control here through the climate menu page. It's just very simple. I find it to be very easy to use. You also have air quality alerts, right? You've got your ionization, you've got fragrances, so you can dial up or down fragrances. It looks at how the air is outside. Very useful for markets like China. That's really where those start to come into play. And then below that, you do have some physical controls for volume. I don't love this little slider. I'd prefer a knob. That's the one part which I really wish was a knob. And then you've got your car settings here for all of your important driving features, such as your heads-up display, your ESP. You can raise the suspension there. You got your car wash mode. And then you can see your EQ stats as well. So right now we're sitting at 69%. You can see you got DC maximum information there. You can open up the charge ports, all done here. You can do the high voltage battery pre-temperature control. You got automatic there, turn that on and off, which is really, really cool. So they give you quite a bit of information. Let's see what the consumption has been. 317 watt hours per mile, which is pretty awesome. That's really, really good. You also have some settings in here, all easy to access for navigation and that kind of thing. These screens, Mercedes gives you so much information on what's using power, how do you save electricity. I find that to be really interesting to use. And then I'll take the camera if you want to put your seatbelt on. From a steering wheel standpoint, beautiful white leather steering wheel here, and then across left and right side we have functionality. So we've got driver assistance on the left, we've got audio, phone controls on the right, and then you've got the large screen in front of you as well, which is completely configurable and super easy to access. You do that over here on the left. You can also change the look of the display. So if you want like a sport design, you can do that. Understated is one of my favorites, where it just goes very simple, very elegant. You can also have navigation up there, so it feels like you're in a fighter jet, driver assistance. Very, very cool. And then basically everything in the car is controllable via the steering wheel. This controls the right screen, this controls the middle screen. Stocks feel very good, and I love the air vents with these little twist knobs. Very, once again, this time feels very aeronautic, whereas, the wood on the dash feels very nautical. But let's talk about the driving experience, because all of the stuff I'm talking about is cool to have, right? It's cool bits of functionality, but it doesn't really change your perspective of this car, because this is all stuff we've known. The thing which has really changed the perspective for me on this car is the driving experience. And here's what I mean. So for decades, I feel like Germany has been leading the way in driving experience from a sports standpoint. So the 3 Series, right, the M3, the C-Class, the AMG cars, the E-Class, even the S-Class, right, are all some of the best driving cars on the road. Where I feel like the Germans have struggled a little bit, though, is adapting some of their more comfort-oriented cars for US roads. So like the new C-Class is great, the new 3 Series is great, the new M3 is great, but like an M3 on a US commute is pretty miserable, especially like here in Colorado. We got bad roads, and all we do in Colorado and much of the western half of the US is drive in straight lines. I mean, sure, we've got some nice twisty mountain roads, but on everyday commutes, this is what most people do. They sit in their car, 40 miles an hour, going straight on a super wide, large road. And for so long, the German manufacturers have been tailoring their suspension and their chassis dynamics to meet the needs of the Nürburgring and to meet the needs of these, fast, twisty roads in the Alps. And then when you bring them to the States, I often find that they're too firm and they're a little bouncy, and they just don't. I have always been like, why? But the EQS SUV is really the first car I've driven from Mercedes-Benz in a long time, and the first car I've driven from any German manufacturer, once again in a long time, maybe ever, that has embraced the American ride quality from like the 1960s. Think peak Cadillac, but with refinement. So we're going down this really rutted out road, and the car just floats. When you combine that with these squishy seats and these amazing headrests, this is easily the most comfortable car I've driven in 2023. I mean, it's bordering Rolls-Royce levels of comfort in here, and when you add in the quiet serenity of the electric powertrain and the lack of shifting, right, from that direct drive transmission, it makes it such a pleasant experience to interact with. It feels like you're driving the future in this car, and it's way more refined than anything I've driven from Tesla. It's way more refined, in my opinion, than the BMW iX, just because it is so comfortable and quiet. Now, it's not like floaty, right? You hit a bump and the suspension isn't bouncing up and down 5 times like a pogo, as you'd expect from a 60s Cadillac, but it irons everything out, partly because of the weight of this large battery. Now, if you do want to dial in some performance, you do have 355 horsepower at your right foot, 419 pound-feet of torque. You can also dial in dynamic mode. Let's go into the sport mode here, and I'll show you what I mean. When you put your foot down, it's pretty gradual off the line. The programming is such that you don't really hit peak acceleration until about 40 miles an hour, but it really boogies. It gives you a big push of acceleration, and passing power is impressive. There's a little like extra boost switch at the base of your pedal as well, and then you can see what percentage of power you're using on the dash. So powertrain in this car is perfect. The only compromise is that the EQS 450 Plus is a rear-wheel drive SUV. Here in Colorado, you really want probably the all-wheel drive, but then that means stepping up to the 580, you're spending a lot more money. So if I lived in California, skip the 580, get the 450 Plus. Living in Colorado, especially in our harsh winters, it would be really nice to have all-wheel drive. The only things I dislike from a driving experience, the recuperation, or as we say in the US, regeneration, is a little bit wonky. You've got a number of modes that you can control here via the paddle shifters. If I go into strong, it does a pretty good job of mimicking a one-pedal driving experience, but it's a little weird in that it sucks down the brake pedal as the EQS cars do, so that if you go for a panic stop and you need to activate the friction brakes, the pedal's not always where you left it, which is kind of odd. Let's see if it brings us to a complete stop here at the stop sign. It's a little bit too gradual too. Will it creep? Yeah, it could be a little bit more aggressive. I think Tesla's too aggressive on their one-pedal mode. Mercedes could be a little bit more assertive. But apart from that, I think the range is good, over 300 miles. The comfort is top-notch. The refinement here is incredible, and the sound system and the technology is really good. Would I get it over an iX? From a design standpoint, when I first saw it, absolutely not. I just think it's a little too jelly beany. After driving it, absolutely I would, because it's so comfortable and refined. Would I give it over a Model X? Well, the Model X has access to the Tesla supercharging network, but Mercedes just announced that starting 2025, so are the Mercedes cars. So I probably would get it over a Model X, especially with the build quality and the refinement and the lack of rattles. It just feels so much better in this vehicle compared to what Tesla is offering. So overall, I think Mercedes has done a nice job with the EQS SUV. A little pricey. I would like to see it start maybe 80 grand, not 104, but that's a pretty good ride. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your feedback to see if you agree, if you disagree, and what you're thinking on that front. As always, this has been Tommy, behind the camera Ian. We'll see you on the next video.